Right, today I'm going to do my talk on learning styles, the good, the bad and the reasons. And this is the last, I've combined the last two blogs that have been marked and put them into one, because I think it makes a nice progression along as the slide goes. So, firstly, a little introduction. Why this topic? Because I think you all sort of need to understand why I decided to do it. Definitions, I'll then do a little bit about VARK, because it's the most commonly used one. The good reasons, the bad reasons, and then the reasons as to why we actually use learning styles within education. I'll then conclude and then give you a little bit of my thoughts, which you can feel free to disagree with. So basically, why this topic? I recently attended a PGC interview, and we had to do a small presentation on, completely forgotten the word now, on a lesson plan, and and we had to do a topic, and we had to hand in all our worksheets and things like this. And I went through mine. I thought mine went really well. And then I got into the interview, and the person asked me, she said, "So why didn't you tell us why you were incorporating the worksheets as to learning styles?" And I said, "Well, actually, you know, I'm actually just doing research on this as we speak." I said, for one of my modules at university, and I've actually found so much research that goes against the use of learning styles, because it says that it actually hinders our learning and that it's not beneficial to to the students. And she literally looked at me. There was a silence. Right. And that was it. And I felt so like, oh my God, it's like there's so much research out there, but yet you still ask me such an important question. And I noticed that everybody else in the interview as well was saying, right, this is for the kinesthetic learners, we're going to throw a ball around the class, and then this is for our people that are auditory learners and things. And I thought, well, I haven't done that, and I thought, didn't know whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, but for me it was good, but obviously in the bigger scheme of things I don't think they agreed with me. So I'll go on to the definitions next. A learning style, Felicity defines it as styles as those educational conditions under which students are most likely to learn. So basically they says that there's loads of different channels to which we all learn in a manner, and that we should teach to those learning styles. So how are learning styles established? There are loads and loads of different learning style tools that teachers can use in order to establish our type of learning style. There's VARK, which, like I said before, is the most commonly used one. Then there's Kolb's experimental model, the cognitive approach, and Honey and Mumford model. Obviously, VARK's the most commonly used one, so I've decided to use that one as an example. So, VARK, I'll go for it. It's pretty self-explanatory, I'm sure you all know, but just to help you out, I will do it. So visual is the V element, and it says that preference for seeing, so we like to think in pictures, you know, lots of drawings, things like this. Auditory is listening, all to do with like hearing and things. They say that lectures, people stand there and talk to us, and we learn through the use of our ears. Reading, writing, so it's a seeing and doing. So you can read books, you then take your notes, and then kinesthetics is all about the experience, getting up, movement involved. It helps us all to learn, especially sort of practical lessons and things like this. Apparently kinesthetics the way forward with that. So the good, this is those studies that are in support of using learning styles within education. Again, I've used all of these in support of VARK. Now Murphy conducted VARK questionnaires at the beginning of orthodontics. I don't really know what you do with orthodontics, like, I suppose we'll say schooling for ease. And they gave out a questionnaire at the beginning of it, and in order to help tailor teaching to the orthodontic students' learning, and they actually found that the majority of them were visual learners, so the tutors then implemented this into their teaching, and at the end of their course, the students reported back saying they actually felt that it enhanced their learning, that, you know, made it more beneficial for them. This is quite similar to Draeger and I want to say Wagner, but it could be Wagner if you're German, I don't know. And these did online students, so people that had enrolled in online classes, and they got the tutors to give out the questionnaire online for them to compete, and they said that they would read-write. So the tutor then did this through the use of books and things, asking them to take notes while they were doing their distance learning through the use of computers. And they also said that perhaps that's why they had enrolled in the online, was because of the use of their actual learning style. They felt that this would help them gain the academic achievement that they needed at the end of it. I'm not even going to bother pronouncing that name because I don't know how to say it. This one did on nursing students at the beginning of their nursing degree, and again they used the VARC questionnaire, and they found that the majority of them were read-write learners, and it was really closely followed by kinesthetic, and so the tutors again implemented this into their teaching, and the students at the end reported back saying that they actually found that the use of the VARC questionnaire to establish their learning style helped their learning in the long run throughout their degree. Right, moving on to the bads. So these are studies that say that we should use learning styles within education. Now, to be fair, if you type learning styles in, the majority of research that comes up is negative about it, saying that you shouldn't really be using it because it does hinder children's education and there's all sorts of issues. So, firstly, the one that's highlighted is labelling theory by Becker, and this states that in the beginning of education, we're given out the questionnaire, we complete it, it comes back saying we are a auditory learner. We then continue to go through our education saying, I am an auditory learner, because you've then been labelled as that learning. And then when you internalise this, you then feel that you can't learn from someone, if someone gets up there and they talk to you and ask you to read a book and write your notes, that you say, oh, I can't learn this way because I'm an auditory learner, I do not read right, that's not my learning channel. So the labelling theory actually hinders education because they continue to go on saying that they can't learn in certain manners and refuse to learn in other means. So that's the labelling theory. And then the self-fulfilling prophecy by Merton, this links to the labelling theory as well, because if people go throughout their education saying I'm such and such learner, they then internalise that, and they then, for the self-fulfilling prophecy, they then say I'm such a learner, so this is the only way that I'm going to learn, and they fulfil that prophecy by only learning through that manner. Now, Paschler states that at present there is no evidence to justify incorporating learning styles into teaching. Snyder also concludes this. It says that we should approach the use of learning styles in education with scepticism. And Dembo and Howard says that allocating learning styles to students is incorrect. You know, we shouldn't be able to do it because all the research out there says it's not valid, it's not reliable, and it hinders. Says that it's not beneficial to students' learning, nor does understanding one's preference to improve the end outcome. So understanding that you may be an auditory learner doesn't actually help you learn, because you still learn through the means by which your teacher teaches you. So on to the reasons. Now, this is the blog that's just recently been marked, and I thought, well, we're obviously still using learning styles within education. There's a sea of research out there stating that we shouldn't be using them, but yet teachers do still continue to use it. Now, whether that's, you know, the teacher's own preference, or whether it's the way that they've been taught to teach through PGCE programmes, or the government implementing this, I don't know. But it is still used, so there has to be reasons as to why we use it. And I came up with a few explanations with research as to why we may actually still use them. Firstly is that of belief systems, and this then leads to teacher beliefs. Now, belief systems are something that we all have. You know, from a young age, it can be religious, it can be extraterrestrial activity, but beliefs, Glover says, that we come about based on intuition, so what we feel is right, evidence-based, so things that we've read and we think, yeah, that's right, so therefore I believe it. Then there's authorities, such as teachers, the police, government, things like this, so we believe the things that they tell us. And then internalising beliefs of others around us. This is quite closely linked to education and family. The last 2 points are most relevant to that of education, the internalising and authority. It says that, you know, we go through life believing, it's more of a philosophical view, so it's quite difficult to find it from a psychological perspective. But if you think we go through life saying, you know, but teachers tell us we are this learner, we then continue to go through education saying that we are such and such a learner, we learn through this channel. So the authority of the teacher is implementing that. And then, because it's worked for those students that have gone through education saying they're an auditory learner, for example, and then if they decide to go into teaching from there, the cycle starts again, because they go into teaching and say, right, I'm going to hand you out a questionnaire, just help me establish which learning, I can then tailor my teaching to your academic learning styles, and the cycle continues, and that's actually what's called teacher belief systems. So perhaps, you know, the beliefs of our childhood then continue up through education into our adulthood when we go into teaching. Now, the second one is the theory of planned behaviour, which with a view of learning styles. I'm not going to Bologna and someone. They conducted research using the theory of planned behaviour, which comes from I think it's Ajnek, I think that's how you pronounce it. And basically this states that in education, teachers' beliefs regarding their intent to implement the learning styles into education, they do this through the use of behaviour observation, the subject norm, and then their perceived control of the behaviour of the class. Now the behaviour with this study was that of the learning styles, the way in which the pupils learn. And the results found that attitude towards behaviour, so the behaviour of the students' learning style, was the one that influenced most their likelihood to implement learning styles into their teaching, aiding their teaching style. This was then followed by their observation of how well they're controlling those behaviours. So if they think, yes, I'm doing quite well at sort of, my pupils are obviously learning because I've done their questionnaire, I've then looked at it and think this is how they all learn, and then they then feel that this is successful, so they continue to use it through this theory of planned behaviour. And then the third one was from personal experience. Now obviously all teachers have been through education, they've all had to go to school and they've all had teachers. And Brown says that conducted research, and they found that teachers go into teaching and then quite a lot of them often use the channels by which they had learnt, so they think that the way that they learn is best, so they continue to learn that way. And then they then go into teaching and teach the way that they had learnt because it succeeded for them. And they also found that once they've gone into teaching, and because they've got such a narrow view of teaching, that it's very difficult for them to change, and they're reluctant to adjust their teaching to that of other pupils. Stitt and Goads found that sort of it was more of a verbal questionnaire. They asked them questions and they said, you know, why do you teach in this manner? And they found that the teachers were coming back at them and saying that it worked well for me, so therefore I'm going to do it. And research has proven that because it worked well for me, then if I'm going to teach in a read-write manner, those pupils who also learn through a read-write manner are going to learn well as well, and they're going to succeed within my class and their general education. And that was found by Miller. So, to conclude, I've talked about the learning styles and the fact that they're still used widely in education today, despite the fact there's so much research out there saying that we shouldn't use them. The most common is VARK. We'll get given VARK questionnaires at the beginning of class. I know I had it through secondary school and college. There are obviously those in support of using them because psychology is always balanced. There's lots of research stating that it's not beneficial and that, you know, we shouldn't still be using them in education today. But obviously there has to be reasons as to why we're still using them. So I've looked at them through teachers' reasons, such as belief systems, the theory of planned behaviour, and personal experience. So what do I think? Obviously, like I said before, psychology, so there's research out there that's in support of them, but for me, I actually managed to find more research out there that didn't support them. So from that manner, I'd say that they aren't useful. I mean, obviously we all have ways in which we learn better. We have a learning preference. However, it doesn't mean that we're limited to just one mode of learning, which is what VARK suggests, which is the most commonly used one. I know from my personal thing, I prefer to read things and write notes, look through internet and things, but you know, that doesn't mean I only learn from one manner, because there can be times that someone can stand up there and talk to me about a subject and I can really take in what they're saying because they're an enthusiastic person, I'm interested in what they're talking about. So, you know, I don't just have one mode of learning, which is what learning styles suggest we do. Obviously, teachers then try and work to that, and it's not always beneficial because they tend to teach to the manner in which they learn, which obviously isn't beneficial to, and obviously education's changing, and so the way that they learn may not be as favourable as other methods that are coming in today. So I think that we shouldn't rely so heavily on them, which is what a lot of people seem to do. Obviously my PGC interview highlighted that, and the thing is I was going for a psychology PGC as well, so I don't quite know whether that was good or bad, the fact that they weren't aware of such research. But I think we do rely too heavily on them, and I think if you make a class as enjoyable as possible and use all manners that you can possibly use with technology and things, everything that's up to date, then people will learn much better than they do through the use of learning styles. So, thank you. Any questions? None? Good. Okay, that's great. Thank you.